WNBA and the Indiana Fever did not want people to know that Caitlin Clark was going to be out for the season. I can tell you, from the very day that they decided to let that go public, everything has dropped off a cliff.
The WNBA's reliance on one star has reached a critical stage. With ratings and sales in free fall, the Indiana Fever are now being controversially relocated for a game in Atlanta, a direct result of Caitlin Clark's absence. The league's gamble that fans wouldn't object has failed, exposing a deep fragility. This raises a pivotal question. Could the WNBA truly survive an entire season without its marquee player? Let's analyze this bluntly. The league is in a precarious position. The metrics tell the full story. From the moment Caitlin Clark's season-ending injury was confirmed, interest has dropped off precipitously. Just weeks ago, the narrative was of packed arenas, ESPN celebrating historic viewership, and fans crossing state lines to watch Indiana. The current reality is a stark contrast. Swaths of empty seats, a palpable lack of energy, and television ratings that have regressed alarmingly.
People were trying to hang on to the possibility this whole time. Look, so many people stayed engaged with the team because they thought the cavalry was coming. She's coming back. We're going to have a fighting chance to win the WNBA championship. The Indiana Fever and the WNBA, they knew this.
The league's response is now moving Indiana's games to Atlanta, a decision whose strategic rationale is puzzling. This is not a long-term solution. It is a clear act of desperation. Let's examine the recent past. When Clark was playing, the WNBA possessed an economic engine. ESPN built its coverage around her. Her presence delivered viewership numbers the league hadn't seen in decades, with millions tuning in and social media engagement reaching all-time highs. The Indiana Fever were no longer just a team. They were a traveling spectacle. Every road contest had a home game atmosphere, as fans nationwide flocked to see her. A critical part of this fallout is the timing. Both the WNBA and the Fever's front office delayed confirming her season was over. They allowed false hope to build around a potential playoff return for one reason: to sustain ticket sales. They understood that the moment her status was official, the economic bubble would burst. It has. The Baltimore game is proof. Nearly 3,000 fans who had already purchased tickets refused to show up. That is a potent message of consumer backlash. These fans feel misled, having paid for a superstar attraction and being delivered a lesser product.
People felt like they were going to games thinking this team would have Caitlin Clark coming back to make a championship run. I mean, the perfect example, the game in Baltimore the other day with the Mystics. Nearly 3,000 fans decided not to show up, and they paid for the ticket.
Meanwhile, the league's broadcast partners present a narrative of stability, citing year-over-year growth and the highest average viewership in decades. But this analysis is disingenuous. Those record numbers were almost exclusively driven by Caitlin Clark's games. She was the force behind the massive viewership spikes and the viral social media content. Without her, the viewership for other league matchups reveals a much more sobering reality. To put these numbers into perspective, one recently promoted game drew less than 100,000 viewers. This is a viewership level more commonly associated with online influencers, not a professional sports league. The league projects confidence, but the data indicates a crisis.
But before Caitlin Clark's season-ending injury, WNBA tickets were averaging $89. The moment she went down, price crashed nearly 30%, plummeting to $62 a seat. That's kind of crazy. And there's a lot of reasons for this, but obviously the biggest reason is Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark literally being out, and again, she's only on one team, but a very big chunk of the total attendance in WNBA is from the Indiana Fever.
This situation is a direct challenge to Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's vision. She operated on the premise that the WNBA's brand could grow beyond one player. It is now painfully clear that one player was the league. Without Clark, the WNBA lacks social media buzz, media momentum, and a place in casual sports talk. Now comes the most puzzling aspect: moving Indiana Fever games to Atlanta. This is a move that broadcasts desperation, an attempt to extract revenue from a new market rather than building on an existing one. The logic that Atlanta fans would turn out for the Fever without their main attraction simply does not hold up to scrutiny. We've seen this playbook in professional sports before. The NBA has tried to prop up specific markets for broadcast deals, irrespective of local fan interest. That approach failed then, as it is failing now. Demand cannot be artificially engineered. Fans are either invested or they are not. And currently, without Caitlin Clark on the court, they are not.
Arenas. So yeah, a lot of teams, whether it be the Lynx opening the Upper Bowl, whether it be the Wings, the Dream, the Sky, all of these teams moving games. All of these teams are moving games for the Indiana Fever, regardless of who it is. They all have to sell those seats. And a lot of people don't want to go, and it's super cheap. Like, it's a lot easier to fill a 10,000 seat arena without Caitlin Clark than to fill 20,000. So you're going to have to find a way to do it anyway, which is what a lot of people are going to be doing, trying to sell tickets. The seats for the playoffs, I would say the Indiana Fever playoff seats would have been, honestly, like nearly $1,000 in. I actually think had Caitlin Clark been playing, it would be nearly $1,000 into this game.
The quantifiable impact of Caitlin Clark's absence is stark. Before her injury, a Fever Sky game featuring Clark and Angel Reese drew 2.7 million viewers, a figure competitive with primetime MLB broadcasts. Post-injury, a Fever Mystics contest managed only 270,000. While a later game against the Lynx surpassed 1 million, the league's premier markets, including New York and Las Vegas, are not compensating for the loss. Aja Wilson's elite talent is undeniable, but the casual fan engagement is not there, a harsh reality for the league. This downturn has palpable effects, as players are aware of the emptier arenas, the reduced online chatter, and the notable decrease in ESPN highlight coverage. Reports of discontent from players like Angel Reese and general team. Friction suggests an underlying acknowledgement that the league's recent financial upswing was tied to Clark. The bottom line is clear. The WNBA's mainstream relevance was tethered to a single player, and with her sidelined, the league has made a panic move. Relocating the Fever to Atlanta is a desperate gambit to see if a new market can mask the fact that national viewership is declining. It is a strategy of misdirection that is not convincing observers. The shift in arena atmosphere is undeniable. With Clark playing, every possession carried playoff intensity, with every official's call eliciting a powerful crowd reaction. Now, the sound of sneakers on hardwood often overpowers the audience, creating an awkward silence instead of an electric atmosphere. Consider Angel Reese's trajectory. From being positioned as a face of the league to reports of her being unhappy, or sitting out with minor ailments, her storyline has lost traction in the mainstream. The public's interest was overwhelmingly focused on the Clark phenomenon, not on the league's other internal dramas. The WNBA can promote its other elite talents, Aja Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Nafisa Collier. But without Clark as the main draw, the viewership numbers are sobering. Games featuring these stars are drawing between 130,000 and 200,000 viewers, figures that raise serious questions about the league's future viewership floor. This brings us back to the Atlanta strategy. What is the endgame of forcing the Fever to play there? The city's own WNBA franchise has historically faced challenges in drawing crowds. The notion that Indiana's roster, minus its star, will suddenly galvanize a market that has shown tepid support for its own team is a flawed premise. The real motivation appears to be optics. The WNBA cannot afford broadcasts filled with shots of empty seats in Indiana, as vacant rows are an undeniable visual indictment of the league's drawing power. By moving the game to Atlanta, the league can potentially mitigate this by distributing tickets to corporate sponsors or offering promotions to fill the arena, ensuring a more favorable television presentation. The strategy is not about cultivating fans. It's about managing public perception. This situation is more pronounced because the league and its broadcast partners spent the season celebrating record growth, attributing it to a league-wide surge. The reality was that Clark was the tide lifting all boats. The moment she was sidelined, that tide went out, revealing the league's underlying vulnerabilities. Fans see this discrepancy. The Baltimore game, where nearly 3,000 paid ticket holders did not attend, was a clear vote of no confidence. The narrative that the WNBA's strength was in its collective legacy and culture, rather than in one player, has been effectively disproven by the ratings collapse. Bluntly, the WNBA has a severe dependency problem. Caitlin Clark became the league's essential asset, and her absence has created a vacuum. Moving games is a superficial fix, akin to rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. The core issue is the league's short-sightedness. Instead of leveraging the Clark spotlight to build sustainable excitement around multiple stars, it allowed itself to become entirely reliant on her, while publicly claiming otherwise. This has led to the current paradox: a league celebrating record average ratings for the season while simultaneously panicking about current viewership and attendance. The hypocrisy extends to media narratives that lecture fans on their obligation to support the sport regardless of one player. Guilt is not a sustainable marketing strategy. Entertainment is. Clark provided must-see entertainment. Without her, the product's appeal to the casual fan has diminished significantly. Looking at the broader sports landscape, this is not a new phenomenon. Leagues are built on stars. The NBA transitioned from Michael Jordan to a new era, led by Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, and Allen Iverson. The NFL seamlessly moved from Tom Brady's dominance to Patrick Mahomes' era. The key difference is that these leagues successfully cultivated and marketed multiple superstars simultaneously, ensuring a succession plan for mainstream relevance. The WNBA, conversely, placed all its implicit marketing chips on Clark, leaving an empty stage in her absence. This is not a critique of the other players' skills, but an acknowledgement of their current market impact. This raises a critical question for next season. If Clark's return is delayed, or she is not at 100%, will the league face this same crisis again? The WNBA was presented with a golden opportunity: unprecedented attention, viral engagement, and packed arenas. Rather than using that momentum to build a more resilient foundation, it maximized the short-term gains from its singular star. The result is an exposed dependency. This Atlanta experiment will serve as a definitive test. Whether the games are poorly attended or artificially filled, the desperation will be evident. The WNBA's identity for the 2025 season became inextricably linked with Caitlin Clark. The league can deny it, but the data does not lie. Without its primary star, its mainstream visibility has been critically diminished. The organization is now in a scramble, hoping a change of venue can distract from a ratings collapse that everyone has already noticed.